All right, Russillo, the Denver Nuggets, over under 52.5. They won the NBA title last year. They are plus 550 to win the title. They won 53 games last year, and the over-under is right there. I'll start here. Is this the most realistic mini dynasty we've had since the 2017 Warriors range, where you could totally see a team winning like 3 and 4 years, maybe 2015 Warriors, somewhere in that Warriors range?
You've been on this for a while now, just because I think when you saw them, live twice in that Lakers series, did you go to 2 of those games?
I went to a bunch of them, yeah.
You just came back. You were like glowing about him. And
yeah.
I was like, they haven't even won the whole thing yet. You're like, I think this is the best team. Look, that answer I don't have for you. But if you look at how they finished last year, they were 46-19. They went 7-10 the rest of the way. They weren't challenged by anybody in the West. I think there's just going to be, it's likely there's a little bit more of a challenge to them. Maybe they won't care about seeding like no one does, but I think this is one of those repeats where I actually like the over.
Me too, House. What do you think?
They only have to win the same number of games that they won last year to get the over. So it doesn't feel like a big
Is that you're coming in that hot?
Well, how about this? I thought there might be a little bit of foreplay to this. We're going like right on Denver. We're like going right to the...
Normally, we would have started with the Pacific, right? Because that's the most interesting division. We do them in part 2. But I do feel like Denver's gotten overlooked where they lost Bruce Brown. Cool. They're going to replace him with Christian Brown. He's going to get most of the minutes. They like a bunch of these rookies. They're probably going to hit on one of them. They're going to have trades that they can make in December, January, February if they feel like they're missing something.
Hey, we haven't even got Jamal Murray's not going to be coming back from anything.
Right.
He's going to be coming back from looking one of the best guards in the West. And if you go those first few weeks, I remember watching those games being like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like you could see it just wasn't there yet.
The rest.
So all you have to have them is be challenged, which we'd expect with the depth of the West, and Murray to just be the same guy all the way through. And like, look, I like Bruce Brown too, but this is Jokic he's Curry in that when you put somebody with him, that guy's ceiling is that much higher. And all you have to do is look at Aaron Gordon. So I feel like, if you're the GM of the Nuggets, there's a bunch of players you might not like where you'd be like, well, I like him now because of who we have here.
Yeah, you check out, like, can we throw in Reggie Jackson for 2 months, see if he's got anything left. If he doesn't, we'll flip him.
Right, 100%.
Just Deion Waiters available.
Yeah. A lot of
Deion doing.
A lot of Strother buzz out
Is
there.
Deion recovered from whatever he's recovering from?
Like, is Ricky Davis still playing?
The 2-man thing with Joker and Murray, I actually think they have the championship belt. And I don't think it's debatable because they won the title, but I think what those 2 guys do together is still the most special thing in the league. Now, Giannis and Dame might challenge that. Everybody got excited. We're taping this on a Monday. There's a preseason game yesterday. Giannis was like orgasmic after. He's like, I've never had space on a basketball court before. I've never played with anybody who's been double teamed before. It's just like shots galore being fired at people he won a title with, but not really. I'm not going to get excited about a preseason game.
So does that mean Giannis isn't going to barrel his head down into 3 defenders now?
Yeah, I feel like that's still going to happen. But yeah, Jokic, Murray, Giannis, Dame, Booker, KD. And then there's probably, like, who would you have 4th in the 2-man championship rankings? Would you have Butler and Bam? Would you have Tatum and Brown? Would you have Anthony Davis and Austin Reeves?
I knew it. I knew you were doing that.
You see what I did there?
I knew you were going to do that.
Curry and whoever. Who would you have 4th? I had Butler and Bam, actually.
Ahead of Tatum and Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
2 finals in 4 years.
Okay.
Right.
And Bam's better than Jalen.
Yeah, I would rather have Bam than Jalen, but it's just funny. Like, it almost feels like you're not allowed to say you'd rather have Tatum than Jimmy Butler, even though I think we still think Tatum's just a little bit better than Butler.
Yeah, and I think he's a better MVP candidate. There's a higher ceiling for him at this point. Butler's going to be in his mid-30s pretty soon, maybe even this year.
The Steph part feels dismissive to not include him in it, but like whenever I hear teams or anyone talking about like the top 2, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really been about like who are the top 2, where now we have like a couple options with Phoenix or Milwaukee with that third guy. We're like, oh, we could be back on this. But whenever we do the top 2, I feel like we prioritize who the second guy is way more than who the first guy is.
The second banana guy.
Yeah. So with Steph, you're like, are we really going to leave him out of the 4 no matter who that second guy is?
I don't even know who the second guy is. I guess you would say Clay, but you could also say Wiggins if he gets his shit together this year. And you could also say Draymond, who might have been the best defensive player in the league last year.
Yeah, but it just...
He's already hurt.
To say him as a 2.
Yeah, it's that. Well, that's why he's lower. Then there's like some Fox Sabonis, Mobley Mitchell. There's a Kawhi PG upside piece, but we haven't really seen it in 4 years.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to
Is
that.
Yeah,
there?
oh my God. Yeah, so I still think it's Jokic Murray. Now, I thought what Murray did in the playoffs last year cannot be swept under the rug. I believe that's who he is. I don't think he got hot. I think that's who he is as a player. And I think this team's going to have a little edge to it this year because they won the title. And then it's like, okay, who's going to win? Is it going to be the Lakers? Is it going to be Golden State? Is it going to be Milwaukee? It's going to be Boston. And they're just not mentioned. They might not care, but I think they care a tiny bit. I think Mike Malone cares. I think he
The only
rides that
edge
stuff.
that I anticipate is when they play the Lakers. Otherwise, the temperament of the Joker is such, like the team goes how his...
Yeah, he just leaves.
He's an emotional... Yeah, but I mean...
Does anybody think maybe he's doing a little bit too much? How little he cares about...
You think he cares more?
I think he cares more than this.
Okay.
I think whatever he's presented, I think there's a level of caring a little higher than maybe what he presents. Now, I'm not saying like it's a complete act. Like some of the back and forth of them and the Lakers is hilarious. Like I forget who had it or whatever. It was like, ooh, the Lakers had conversations this offseason about Denver.
Yeah.
They're like, whoa.
They did.
Oh, does Denver know this? So, it's all so new because Denver was, usually you were right for kind of writing them off.
Yeah.
You're like, how good is this team? And I know, we talked about the defense and the road stuff. It was funny. Like I looked through the top 6 seeds last year in the West. Only 2 teams had a winning record on the road. 5 of the top 6 in the East had a winning record on the road, which is usually an indicator. So if you're asking me if it's a dynasty, it's too soon for me. But if you're asking me if this was just phase 1 of like the second phase of domination,
Yeah.
I know we're spending a lot of time on them, but they deserve it. That's why when I looked at 52, I was like, God, I love that. I love that number. Because it had been 54, 55 and a half. You're like, I don't know if I can go that high with it.
Don't you think, House, he's a guaranteed 50 if he's going to play like 72 games, Jokic?
That's it. There you go.
It's like
You
the old
just did
Tim
math.
Duncan corollary.
Yes.
It's like pencil him for 50 plus. I think the Christian Brown replacing all the stuff Bruce Brown did last year is probably the variable, but I also think he can do it. I'm a believer. What do you think of the rookies? I know you were into that draft, but KOC is all excited about the rookies and their young player potential they have.
Yeah, I feel like they just were like, we're going to role player this, you know, but everyone is a better role player with Jokic.
Yeah.
Your life is just going to be easier. So, I mean, look, we're still sitting here. They won a title, and we're wondering like who their 1 through 4 is because Michael Porter Jr. is still probably disappointing.
Yeah. But not as your 4th best guy.
No, I mean, he's really expensive, and we know it's a medical risk, but like he hasn't really delivered the way you think he could, not because of like pre-draft stuff. There are flashes with him where I think he's one of the 10 best shot makers in the NBA. Like, I'm serious. The stuff he can do, getting a shot off and making it off the dribble with his size and everything, you're like, when he gets it rolling, now a lot of it with him is ever just kind of putting it all together. It was a slow start where there were very few glimpses. I think Malone was, there were years ago where they were hurt in the perimeter and he still wouldn't play the guy.
Yeah.
So it's been a slow going for him, but there's still like some hope that, wait a minute, what if he's just putting it together on a night-to-night basis, doing more of the stuff that he's supposed to be doing on top of the shot making, where their profile is even higher?
I wonder, we had the big 3 stuff for a while, and then we moved into a big 2 thing kind of last spring. I wonder if big 4 is going to become the new thing.
I hope so.
The Celtics have a nice, strong big 4. And then plus like the Porzingis piece, but the Denver's big 4, I think.
Best 4 since like 92, you think?
Nah. What was the one with Ala Abdenabi? Yeah, that one. But yeah, the 4-man stuff. And that's where like the Milwaukee case falls apart a little bit because I don't, their 4th is Middleton. We'll talk about them later, but I just don't know what I'm getting from Middleton at this point in his career. Like he was already sitting out games and practices and stuff. So I like Denver's 4, and I think they'll be able to figure out the pieces around. So that's an easy over for me. Over for you, House?
Over.
Okay. Well, that was easy. Now it gets tough. Let's go to Minnesota. 44.5. They are one of 17 West teams with a 44.5 over-under. They're plus 550 for the division, which is basically a Jokic will get hurt bet. Minus 144 for the playoffs, plus 102 for no playoffs. They finished 42 and 40 last year. And I guess the over comes down in this question. House, can Edwards become a second-team All-NBA guy? Here's who's in the mix.
That's the only question?
For them to be, that's the biggest question for me.
Okay.
So we're talking he's swimming in the ocean with Curry, SGA, Booker, Murray, Lillard, Mitchell, and then you get into that Fox Brunson group. But do you think he can be an All-NBA guy this year?
I do.
I do as well.
I believe it because of what we just saw from him on the world stage and what we've learned over the years about guys who get into that situation, that opportunity, and thrive, and what it does in terms of boosting their own confidence, their primacy,
practice habits,
like everything that you learn.
All the coach quotes about how much they loved him.
That's it. Yes.
What do you have, Russillo? All-NBA possible
Hey,
for him?
look, I love him, and I think everything's possible for him. I mean, he's one of the few guys like that early on. Once you started seeing him play and be like, she's shooting you a text or whoever and be like, are you watching this guy?
Yeah.
And then it felt like his personality was like the right kind of personality to bet on. And then everybody loved him. I was hearing Finch the other day talk about him, and he's like, that. It's funny because I used to always dismiss it with you whenever you would talk about playing for Team USA. I'm like, why do you think this is that big of a deal?
I won you over on my Team USA theory?
Yeah, because I think
everyone but Brandon Ingram?
He was like, what's the dual citizenship story in France? Like, what do I need to do for that? Is there paperwork? So I started, look, it took a long time for me, but I've started to buy into it a little bit.
Yeah.
I
like it.
That just being around the other guys.
And the coaches and the culture. And the practice habits.
Yeah. So I'm in now, but I don't know how in I am on the rest of the guys. Like, I just, it's a tough number. It's 3 more wins than last year. There's no reason why he shouldn't take it to another level to be able to do that. But like, how many games is Towns going to miss? How many games is he going to be cleared and then not want to come back? How many?
Wow.
Like
shots.
No, I'm just serious. Like, I don't, we've been able to get one guy away from him. We need to get the second guy. That's phase 2 of the Timberwolves operation here.
What do you think of Towns' house? He was under the microscope this summer because it didn't seem like anybody wanted to trade for him, including Portland, including the Knicks. The trade market for him with the contract that he has was not robust.
It's literally a glass half full, glass half empty approach to him. Do you say that he will regard this upcoming season as the opportunity to remind everybody of who he is, his ability to play with Gobert? There was some friction.
Like Dr. Dre 2001 range?
Yeah, right.
I got to show everybody I still got it.
Don't forget about Cat.
Right.
That
was
really
well executed for a guy who's mid-50s.
Tried my best.
That was really good. Russillo was impressed.
I was trying. I thought it was funny
it's like
that
you forgot
asked.
And then you didn't.
Yeah,
it was really it was good.
Forgot about
right.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to do it with.
You got the dramatic pause in there. It was good. Continue.
Edwards to me isn't the fulcrum player. It's Cat. Cat's the difference for this team. Cat, all their fortunes depend on how many games does he play, and does this combination with Gobert work? I think Gobert is ready to be the role guy that makes the most sense. So this is really up to Chris Finch and Karl Anthony Towns. And I'm not going to say which way I'm leaning on the total until you give me permission, but I really like this Minnesota team. I think they're like 8 or 9 good guys on this team.
Towns only played 29 games last year. The year before, he played 74 and averaged 25 and 10 basically, and shot 53, 41, 82 percentages. So if you're just like crunching numbers in a computer, you're like, is this one of the 12 best guys in the league without ever watching a basketball game? And then you watch him and it feels different.
But there's something I think about with every single team and every single, like, and I don't want to be this negative, but like, what's your shithead vibe factor on any team? And like, when we get to Memphis a little bit later on, a lot of guys I really like, but the last couple of years, like, you guys say and do stuff that's just like DeAndre Ayton. When he got introduced to Portland and he's like, hey, I'm here to dominate. That's my name, Dominating. We're like, who are you working with? Like, who?
Tinder.
Like, you know what? Like, that sounds really good, but are you trying
dominating?
Like,
so you didn't like dominating?
Not for him. I didn't, because I've watched him play. And so it's like, wait, so is everybody else's fault? Yeah. So Towns has some of that stuff when he does these interviews.
Yeah, he just shouldn't give interviews at all.
Yeah, it's
he
like
the Leo DiCaprio just.
I reference it too many times, but when Ben Simmons did that sit down with JJ, that hour-long thing, I go, I don't need to know anything more about him. Right. I go, I'm good. And so I have certain players now.
I'm that way with Jada Pinkett at this point. I'm good, Jada.
Yeah, they're just interviews where you go, oh.
Unhappy marriage, I get it.
Yeah.
You knew Tupac. So I really like a lot of the guys in this team. I like Kyle Anderson, like Mike Conley. McDaniels punched a wall right at the end of their season last year. Still like him.
Still like him.
Really like Naz Reid. Kind of enjoy Shake Milton. I just think they have too much talent. And I listen, this was the most overrated 5-game loss in recent NBA history. But they did impress me against Denver in that playoff series.
Yeah, why
they really did. I don't know why. I can't get it out of my head.
Did you ever feel like Denver was remotely threatened by them?
I just thought they gave them good games.
Okay.
I thought they were competitive, and if
more meaningful for Minnesota than for Denver, right? In your casting of this.
Yeah, I think they had two big
for
guys
growth
to throw.
Purposes.
Where the league's heading, where the league's gotten a little bit bigger, like they have some size and some, they haven't proven that they can play Gobert and Towns together and be a team that wins 60% of its games. But for me, it's an over because of Edwards, and I think he has a chance to. I just think I've seen this before. I've followed this league enough times, and I've seen the arc. And he's hit all the checkpoints of the arc. We've seen just every single stretch of it. And I just think he's going to have a huge year. And if he has a huge year, that's a 45-win team because they have defense and rebounding. They have Mike Conley, which they haven't really had before, assuming he has 1 year left. So for me, it's an over house. Are you under or over?
I'm over.
Okay.
And I'm not ready to do lock, but as we go through this and start thinking about locks, they're on my list.
And you're under, Russillo?
Yeah, I am. And I don't like it because it's just not a reflection on Edwards. It's a reflection on, I think even if Edwards gets it rolling, it's going to bother Towns.
Right.
Like, I think that's the problem, is that it clearly should be Edwards' team all the time.
And you don't think Towns is going to be sitting around going, how do I make Anthony Edwards better? How can I be his wingman?
No, because he's another guy who doesn't think he's done anything wrong with his approach to playing the game.
Well, so that leads me to my final question before we move on from Minnesota. If I had to give you an over-under of 10 more months for Towns and Gobert together, this experiment, 10 more months, that would take us into like trade stuff next July. Oh, 9 months. Let's say 9 months. Over under 9 months, those guys will still be teammates. Would you go over or under that?
I'd probably still say over because I think it's the reluctance to trade in the league. And I don't think Gobert's.
I would also say over because I think it's going to work this year.
I would go over as well. I think it's going to be rocky. It's going to be weird.
Yeah, but if they're winning high 40s, then what are you doing? You shouldn't.
Yeah,
right.
I think all the rocky and weird was last year. I think they got that. I mean, this is why it's Ryan's point is like Towns has to grow up. If he's a grown up, then their ceiling is a high ceiling.
So you have them playoffs or no playoffs?
I have them playoffs, but I just have them under that number.
Because their no playoffs is plus 102. Their play-in is plus 140. So not being one of the top 6.
I know it gets weird when you go through the West. You start feeling like you're running out of playoff spots. But, I mean, just because I have it in the under, I don't think they're like dramatically under it. I think it's a really good number.
Okay. Next team, my beloved Oklahoma City Thunder, who I already went all in on last week on my podcast. Their over-under is 44.5. They're 6-1 for the division, 85-1 for the title. They were 40-42 last year. And I am over on them. I am over to the point that the big FanDuel boost this year, which we hit last year, and they're going to, I think, put it up on the site on Wednesday, maybe Thursday, but it's going to be Celtics 50-plus wins, Lakers 45-plus wins, and Oklahoma City 40-plus wins. They're going to boost that to like plus 250. I have Oklahoma City as either the 4th or the 5th best team in the West, and I accept all counter arguments. They're too young. They're a year away. They're not going to go for it yet. I just think there's too much talent. I think the Chet thing is being slept on is how important that's going to be for what they were last year and what they need this year. I think this team is competitive as fuck, built for the regular season just to be good week after week after week. I'm not saying they're going to make the second round or even make the conference finals. I just think as a regular season team, this is a team that's going to be in the mid-40s and maybe even a little bit higher. They have a top guy. They have a guy, Shea was first team All-NBA last year. Giddey continues to get better. Jalen Williams, the last 2 months of the season, I don't know how many times we texted about him, Russillo, but really looks like he might have a chance to be somewhat special. And then you talk about the Chet piece of it, and I just think they're going to be a bitch to play. I really like them. They're deep. I haven't heard your thoughts, Russillo, on OKC. Where do you stand?
I feel like everybody likes him so much that I want to zag a little bit. I feel like Shea is just be given a first-class ticket to superstardom when normally it's like...
The 31 a game, did it impress you?
Of course it did, but...
The 11 free throws a game?
Well,
playing without a center?
I'm not going to admit that I always love that he just basically can go right underneath the rim and then... Like, he's so herky-jerky, it just works every single time. So it's not as gross as some of the other guys with the way they get all their free throws. I guess I just... Like, are we sure he is, like, unimpeachable top 10 player in the NBA already?
I feel like he is because I watched him over and over again last season go toe-to-toe with the best players in the league, and it felt like a 50-50 type of crunch time with him against the best players in the league.
So you'd rather have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander than Devin Booker?
I don't think I would, actually. But I think if you're talking regular season, I think Shea's credentials have been more impressive. We watched him last year basically drag that team to the playoffs, and it was like the youngest team in the league. They didn't have a center, and they still went 40 and 42. I have no idea how they did it. It was more impressive than anything Booker did before Chris Paul got there.
You're right.
So,
no, Booker didn't have much.
I think I did the Ringer 100 rankings, and you were texting me about Booker versus Tatum, which I know I'll probably talk to at some point. I think I undervalued Booker maybe by 2-3 spots because I'm with you as a big game guy and I think there's going to be a real burr in his saddle this year with this Suns team. But maybe I'm overrating what SGA did last year, but I was just so knocked. I just couldn't believe how good he was last year. What do you think, House? Where do you stand?
It's a math problem because of the combination of how much improved I think the West is. We're not going to have Golden State and the Lakers, hovering around the play-in line this upcoming season. And they got better by 16 wins last year. So it's like that climb, it's a tall climb to go from a 16-win improvement to another 5-win improvement.
Well, hold on that climb, because I did this on my pod, but I just want to read these stats again really quick. My theory on them was that if a young team, if the assets are special enough, they will jump. Like, they're going to head into the 50s sooner than you think, because we saw it happen with OKC. In 2009, they won 23 games. They went to 50 in 2010. They went to 55 in 2011. And they were in the finals in 2012. But with that team, everybody was like, well, Westbrook's not a point guard. I know KD's good, but I don't see it. And then all of a sudden, they were doing it. Golden State was in a similar spot. 2012, they won 23. 2013 jumped to 47. It's like, well, that was weird. Well, weird season. What does that mean? 2014 won 51. In 2015, they won 67. And then you go back to the 99 Mavs. They were 19 and 31 in the lockout year, 40 wins in 2000. 53 they jumped to in 01, and then 57 in 02. And that was with Dirk and Nash. So the question for me is, are the OKC assets special enough to potentially be in that conversation? And honestly, that comes down to where you feel on Chet. If you feel like Chet can be an impactful guy this year, they have 4 guys that I think for under 23 guys, Shea's a little older, but Giddey, Chet, Jalen Williams, and SGA, I think that's a pretty special nucleus, Russillo. You seem like you're a tiny bit lower on it.
No, but I'm going to go over and
wow. You prepared me for I don't even know what that's called. That was like a pre-zag. That was like an unzag.
I was going to go under, but I knew that the only reason I was really doing it was because it was like, wait a minute. Every time you watched them last year, they were better prepared than most teams. Yeah. They have a bunch of different ways they can attack you. They didn't have really any frontline guy, and here they were fighting for it at the back end of the playoffs in the West.
They played small ball, unbelievable, and they were really well coached.
Right, and even though Chet isn't like the traditional 5-man that's going to be running around all the time, he just adds another level of resistance that you weren't going to have with what's really a power forward in Jalen Williams.
Right.
And then the other Jalen Williams, everybody loves, and it looks like, this guy could be somebody who maybe makes a couple all-star teams, which, is you add that to the Giddey part. I guess I'm like, as great as Shea's numbers were and the way everybody talks about him, it's like, do they really have enough of a second guy to be like a 45, 47 win team?
Good case. Who's the second guy?
It's really the argument. That's exactly it. I'm under.
Under?
I think they're a 44 win team.
House, you fucking traitor.
But they also I think they've burned me 3 years in a row where I've gone oh, that team's going to suck. And then you're watching them and you're going, oh, they're super prepared. They play really hard.
They're not going to suck because Dagnall is.
I'm saying 2 years ago.
I think
2 years ago when they had 24 wins, but
I'm with you.
I think we got going into that year, that roster, I'm oh, they're going to go under. They're going to try to get the pick. And then last year's number was a lot lower than the 40.
I think they're going to be a hard team to play when they're home too. I
think they were last year.
They're bringing off Trey Mann, Kason Wallace, the other Jalen Williams. Dort might be coming off the bench, but they're going to have these teams they can throw out as a second unit, with real defense, with real energy, with some shooting. I really like this team. And you were talking about your instinct was to zag because so many people like them. This is how I got into trouble with NFL this year. With the Lions and with the Jaguars, I was like, oh man, everyone likes the Lions. I'm gonna zag and do Green Bay, and then you watch 2 Lions games, and you're like, holy shit, how did I go against the Lions?
No, you're right. Stupid. You're right because I don't think there's a higher neutral approval rating of any NBA team than OKC right now.
Yeah,
of all the stuff you read and go through it, I'm like, man, everybody just likes them. So that's why. But
well, there's one other piece
we
didn't talk about all the picks. I'll just do it quickly, but. They have 2 top 4 protected from Houston in 24-26. They have Clippers unprotected in 24-26.
What a disaster that
They have another swap.
Going back and thinking that you gave up those picks.
Oh, my God. They have a swap with the Clips in 25. They have a Philly top 6 in 26. They might not have Embiid at that point. The top 14 from Miami. 2 top 5s from Denver. And they have all their own picks. So, if somebody... Let's say, I actually think Toronto is going to be better than most, but let's say Siakam becomes available. Or let's say they just decide we need one more big guy. KOC threw out Robert Williams last week. It was Robert Williams sounds great for this team. Let's just add him for 20 minutes a game. I think it's going to be really easy for them to add one more guy, and it'll probably be a big guy. But I like where they are. I'm in on this team. To me, the question would be, why not us? Copyright Kurt Schilling. Almost 20-year anniversary. Why not us?
Good time for a Schilling reference. Everybody likes that guy.
He's red hot right now. All right, so House over.
Super high approval.
Russillo over. I'm sorry, House under, Russillo over, Simmons over. Okay, it doesn't get any easier with the Utah Jazz. Over under 35.5. They went 37-45 last year. To make the playoffs, they're plus 420. To make the play-in game, they're plus 250. Is this the single best asset team for you other than OKC from a player's picks, just things standpoint, Russillo? Just things.
I like Oklahoma City's players better.
I have OKC 1. I think Utah might be in the running for 2. They own 6 of their next 7 firsts. They have 3 mini firsts and a swap. They have a Lakers first in 27. They have 2 Cleveland firsts and a Cleveland swap. So they have all these different things they can do. And it also looks like they nailed the draft. I hate overacting in preseason. I hate it. I try not to watch too much of it. But this Keontae George, really seems like he might actually be special right away. I don't know how they're going to keep him off the court. Have you watched him, Russillo?
Yeah, I mean, he was, there's certain games in college. If you watch the Kansas game, you're like, how did this guy not go top 5?
Right.
He has some of that in him. But then if you watch some of the other stuff he does, you're like, okay, this is why he hung around for a little while. But, you'd at least rather see a guy, I think he's playing at Fog, where he was incredible. And you're like, you're playing there in that environment that young.
Yeah.
And there's no issues whatsoever. But, like any of these kind of score first guys that put up big numbers in high school, and you're like, are you just defaulting to all this shit that worked in high school all the time? Look, one of my other favorite guys is Taylor Hendricks.
Yeah.
Even though I know I can see the bad side of this.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, he actually just wasn't that good or into it. But he was so smart. He's that big and he could actually shoot. But the George call, if they decide they have to play him a lot at point guard in the NBA this early, that's what has me leaning under. And they got off to that great start last year. I think that's the other part, House.
So this is the problem with them, because you have to make a choice about whether you think they want to be competitive or not. Because Will Hardy is another stud coach. We're talking about are these teams with these incredible coaches.
Well, and to that problem, they owe their 24 first to OKC, and it's top 10 protected. So they're in that let's say they're 25-26 with 31 games to go. And it's like, what do we want to do? Do you want to like make a run and we still fall short of the play-in? And then we give the 11th pick to OKC. Is that worth it?
Yeah, look, they were 10-3.
Yeah, this is the point.
Yeah.
And
remember, because I think we all had them under.
We did.
Like, wait,
because
what?
we forecasted what
Right.
they were doing last year. We thought they had a specific intention, and it wasn't that. We were dead wrong. And what also gives me pause is there are credible reports that they went hard after Dame. A team going after Dame at this stage of where he is in his career, and that's not a team that is looking to reduce their competitive, level. So I don't know. When Markkanen played last year, they were a 500 team. They won 49% of the games when Markkanen played.
Yeah, there's the two pass. This is one of the hardest overs because I could see them being sellers in January, February. Like Olynyk is a perfect January, February guy. He makes like $12 million a year. Could totally see like the Celtics, Miami. There's a bunch of teams you could just see him on. Collins is flippable. And I keep looking at their team and
But how do you trade for Collins and then go under, right? Although I just think John Collins is kind of this mystery guy all the time.
Do you know he's only 26?
Oh, yeah. No, he's like the youngest guy.
It's unbelievable.
Tatum thinks
it's
he's
like
old.
Taylor Horton Tucker is 22. That was the other one where I was like, wait, what? I feel like he's been in the league for 10 years. Here's the case for them going over house. We've watched Danny do this before with the Celtics in the mid-2010s. It was like, rebuild, here we go. They're collecting a lot of assets. And then all of a sudden he'll zag. Like he did that Isaiah Thomas trade. What year was that? 2014? And
yeah, they were supposed to be rebuilding and they were just
all of a sudden they were a playoff team.
Right.
Yeah. And it was like, wait a second, what are we doing? And then a year later, they're, in round 2 in the East Finals. And he's like how I try to be when I play fantasy football, where I'm just like, or fantasy baseball too. I'm never going for it or not going for it. I'm always like, what's the right trade? But like, I'm just trying to have fun. And Danny Ainge is the real life GM of that. Like this could be a situation where Toronto is like, we don't know if we want Siakam anymore. And Danny's like, what do you want for him? And all of a sudden he's trading for Siakam. And the owner's like, wait, I thought we weren't going for it this year. And Danny's like, yeah, Siakam, he's good. We'll figure it out. So 36 doesn't seem like a lot. I think it's 35.5. I think I'm an over.
I think I'm an over also.
And this is my 4th straight over, which believe me, I have just a shitload of unders coming. But I think I'm an over for them. I think they're somewhere in the mid-high 30s.
The problem is the rest of the West. I'm like, whose wins am I taking?
Right.
From?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
that's why
they're also a very good home team.
That's why I went under on OKC, by the way.
Okay.
That math problem that Ryan just described.
You over or under?
I'm under. Okay. But I don't like doing that to Will Hardy, but
I like their talent. I really like their coach. And even if they decide to pack it in near the end, that still might be enough to keep that top 10 pick. But and Agbaji, we didn't even mention him. They doubled down on Jordan Clarkson. They gave him more money. Kessler just played in Team USA, didn't play that much, but I think he was one of the surprise guys.
Chris Dunn back in the fold.
Chris Dunn is back. This could be the year. All right. Well, last one I'm going under just because I can't do 5 unders in the same division, but it's the Portland Trailblazers. 27.5 is the over-under. And as much as I love this team as a league pass team, and I do like a lot of the assets, the West is too good and something's got to give. And this team will be a seller, I think, December, January with Brogdon and with Robert Williams. Keeping those guys would be nuts. Maybe even Jeremy Grant, who they just signed to an extension. But I think this team will aggressively try to get more picks as we head to December, January. And that 27.5 is just a lot when every night you're playing a good team. So it's an under for me, Russillo. What do you got?
I have an under as well. I mean, even if they don't trade those guys, when you have a young backcourt that's also going to be bad defensively, they would have to be at a really high level offensively immediately. Like, I think Ayton's going to put up better numbers than we've seen from him in years.
Some old Joe Barry Carroll, like 22 and 12.
I just think Ayton's going to be like
Meaningless.
a little less deferential to this group than he would be to Chris Paul while he was still there. Durant, Booker. Like, it's just a little tougher to be like, hey, can I have the ball more? And this group, he can do it. I can't wait. I mean, even the Scoop preseason stuff, there's moments where I just get so aroused.
Oh.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll just say it.
The pick and roll stuff with him is pretty
His
special.
Yeah.
His gear to finish.
Yeah.
Like when you're kind of like, wait, is he think he's going to finish right now?
Yeah.
And that's like one of my favorite thing with small players. Be like, wait, this guy's going to be able to finish. Because we'll see other like super athletic, smaller players be like, oh, guess what? You're going to play in the league a long time, but you're never, ever once going to be able to finish the rim. You don't have that finishing package. So I'm with you. I can't wait to watch it. I think Ayton has better numbers. They're not going to trade all these guys. You know, I don't think that would happen, but I think it's a numbers game in the West. So I'm under 27.5.
They'll flip Brogdon, and I think they'll flip Robert Williams.
Okay.
And
They might want Robert Williams, though. Like if he stays healthy, which is a massive if, almost an unlikely if he stays healthy to put next to Ayton defensively. Although I don't know, like Robert Williams sometimes.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah, but like there's also, and this is to your point, there seems to be like a lot of big defensive guys that have these insane metrics.
Yeah.
That I'll watch and like go, is that guy actually that good on defense, or is he being asked to do? It's the Brook Lopez.
We
thing.
talked about this before.
Right.
Yeah, it's
When you
either the
really-
Brook Lopez or it's the guy who plays 9 minutes, and he's an awesome 9 minutes. He's going full speed, but you can't translate it to 40.
Yeah, because like when you looked at the Brook Lopez stuff, it's like, look what he does now on contests at the rim that we've never. And,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, well, let me look at it from this way. He never has to move.
Right.
And he's got one of the best perimeter defenders ever in Drew, and then Giannis, who's just
Yeah.
kind of horrifying.
We'll
to
see
be
what his
around.
stats are this year with Dame Lillard trying to stop, Trae Young. Good luck.
Yeah, so I've come to the point where I'm even more like with more access to numbers, I'm even more confused because there's just some numbers out there with some of these big guys that tell you that their point differential and even some of the Jaren Jackson numbers are absurd.
Yeah.
And you're like, so what? Okay, but what does that mean? Like you're not going to score on him, or
Then
he's
he gets
only
like 5 rebounds in 3 Team USA games.
we knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still mad about it. There's a Chauncey Billups piece to this two house.
It's an under.
Oh, hey, take it easy on
It's
my
an
guy.
under.
I don't like that.
It's an under. Love Chauncey, the player.
Yeah. I'm not sure. This is a really weird team where you have a bunch of guys who are like, hey, man, I could probably use 5 more shots a game. Jeremy Grant, like, hey, man, clear out.
Because he had that in Detroit.
I didn't
remember?
resign here to stand in the corner.
Simons is like, Dame's finally gone. Sharp is like,
Sharp's
this is my
I'm
year.
the best guy in the team. Clear out for me. And then Ayton's like, I should be averaging 25 and 12. So I don't know.
Then
There's
you got Chris Murray. He's going to be like, my brother ain't shit.
Kevin Knox, like, finally. Yeah. And then poor Tyball, who's just going to have to guard everybody. Yeah, it's a weird team. It's an under for me. So 3 unders. Sorry, Portland.